Hi everyone, we're back with another week of nurturing our souls and living our Jewish values. As we approach Hanukkah, I really want to think about one of the virtues that Hanukkah teaches us. It is the value or the virtue of courage. In Hebrew, we call this ometz lev, or strength of the heart. And we think about the Maccabees, who long ago took their bravery, took their courage, and fought for what they believed was right. And I want to share with you a story about a young girl named Rachel who had lived in New York City all of her life. And Rachel had to move out of the city into a town where there were very few Jews. And Rachel grew up celebrating Hanukkah by lighting the Hanukkah candles in her window so that all of her neighbors could see. And when she looked out the window, she could see the Chanukiot, the Hanukkah menorahs from across the way, so that she knew that with the Jewish community that surrounded her, she was lighting the Hanukkah candles. But when she moved to a town with very few Jews, she turned to her parents and said, "Mom, Dad, let's light the Hanukkah, let's light the Hanukkah candles tonight. I'm so excited." Father said, "Let's light them in the kitchen this year, honey." "Why? We're supposed to light them in the window so all can see." "But I don't know that we should light them in the window this year because we're the only Jews in the town. I don't know what others will say." "I think we should light them in the window, Mom and Dad," she said. So they said, "All right, let's light them in the window for the first night." She had just moved to town. Not many of her new classmates spoke to her, so she thought, at least they'll notice my Hanukkah menorah. At least they'll notice, and they'll see, and they'll comment, and they'll talk to me. I can't wait. So she lit her Chanukiah, and it burned bright, and she was so proud. All of a sudden, she got a phone call from her neighbor across the street, her neighbor Brad, who was in her class. "Where'd you get those candles?" he asked. "Well, you know my dad's the fire chief. He wants to make sure that they're safe for fire." She was kind of bummed because she thought that maybe people would talk to her. She went to school and no one said anything, but she was determined and she lit the candles in her front window the next night. But still, her friends didn't say anything to her. Surely they must have noticed, even those who lived on her block. And the third night, finally, she lit the candles again. No one had said anything. And it was the fourth night, and she had lit her candles, and she got a call again from her neighbor across the street, from her neighbor Brad. What are you doing with those candles? Are you sure those are safe? You know, my dad's really concerned." And she finally said, "Maybe it's time to light the Chanukiah in the kitchen." As she looked and stared into the window, she turned to the Hanukkah candles that were burning low. There were still a couple of Hanukkah candles left that had not yet burned out, and she saw their reflection in the window. And it made her look out into her front yard, and all of a sudden she looked across the street, and she saw another candles reflected in the window across the street. But this time they weren't reflected. She saw her neighbor lighting the candles, her friend who had called her, lighting the candles one by one. There were two, and then three, and then they lit the fourth candle. And then maybe she knew. Maybe she discovered something sacred and something special, that she found this new, deep connection. It took a lot of courage. It took a lot of ometz lev for Rachel to light her candles and to stick to it each and every night, to deliver the message of the Maccabees that it is a time when we need to have courage. One of the great songs that I have always loved to sing on Hanukkah, not by might, actually I sang it at camp for years, not by might, not by power, but by spirit alone, shall we live in peace. These are words from the prophet Zechariah, who taught about that it is our spirit, it is the strength of our heart that gives us courage, that helps us move forward. And so we ask ourselves in this season, what is it that the Maccabees taught us? What is it that we can learn from them who fought for what it meant to be free, what it meant to do what is right, what was justice? How can we find the strength now in our time to fight for all of those things that we know are right? How can we find the strength to take care of ourselves? How can we find the strength to take care of our frontline workers who are working so hard to make sure that they are taking care of us? This is a time when we need strength. Sometimes we might feel that our strength is waning, but we ask ourselves, what can we do to give our heart courage? How can we move forward? How can we continue to light the candle in the window so that all those we know and love can see our example of strength and courage. Let it not just be that we light those lights in the window. Let it also be that we light those lights in our heart and our soul, and we bring strength and perseverance to every person we encounter.